Facebook just sent out their what to expect with the iOS update email, and before I dive into my thoughts on it, I just want to preface with why I'm talking about this. I know that this is a channel that's generally speaking dedicated to Google Ads more or less, and we make a few mild departures, but I think 95% of our content is all like 100% Google Ads specific. However, I think it's really important for us to pay attention to advertising models that can and will and do impact Google Ads. Google and Facebook are the two traffic stores, and that's really it. You can throw Amazon in there just a little bit if you want to, but it's its own self-contained ecosystem. And it's important for us to know that the advertisers in Facebook are generally speaking the same advertisers that are in Google. And when one well runs dry, they're going to go seeking greener pastures. So it's, it would be pretty stupid for us. We've got our little Google village over here, and we notice that the Facebook village is, all of a sudden like, fire, drought, and famine. And we're like, oh, sucks for those guys. And really what we should be doing is like, building high walls and stockpiling ammunition, because what I think we're going to see is a massive drop in the efficacy of Facebook ads, at least in the short term, while people figure out how to navigate the new ecosystem. And that drop is going to force advertisers, A, to spend up the Facebook ecosystem, and then B, to go find other alternative avenues. Right when Google all of a sudden made YouTube and display like super viable options. And it's, I think it's an absolute inevitability that we see the Facebook fallout spill over into the stuff that we're doing from a Google perspective. So hopefully, I'd be interested if you disagree, by the way. I'd love to hear the contrarian opinion there, just because I don't know what I don't know. But with that said, here's the email, and they're being uniquely honest for Facebook, and I think it's because, when the meteor's coming and everybody knows it's coming, it doesn't help anymore for you to like try to put lipstick on that pig. Like, I think they're just like, all right, here's what's going to happen, and you just need to be ready for it. So there's this smells like expectation management to me in a lot of ways. They're talking about the iOS 14 rollout and update, which, by the way, we've got some clients. I've got some private consulting clients that I help with their Facebook ads. So even though I don't run it on an agency level, I've been exposed to Facebook on a pretty deep level for the last 6 months or so, and helping with their ads. And I can tell you that we've already seen impacts. His CPM tripled and quadrupled in certain instances with no other change, no other variable other than the Facebook, the attribution model change, and some of what they did with their time windows. So it's worth noting that this is already kind of taking place. But when they roll out the iOS 14 update, what they're saying is expect gradual adoption. And I think that this is interesting because they're basically like, look, we don't know exactly when the full adoption is going to take place, and so it's important for you to know that it's going to get worse before it gets better. That's how I read this. Their expect gradual adoption is whatever fallout you see in the very beginning isn't going to be the end of it, which I agree with. And it's interesting that they're being as transparent as they are about that. A couple of things that I think are interesting, automatic opt-out, that's sort of the policy, so it's not necessarily worth saying. But they're referencing the loss of the 28-day click and 28-day view. I didn't realize that those were still intact for certain campaigns. I thought because they made this change a while ago, if you go try to build a Facebook ad right now, it only allows 7-day click, 1-day view. And so I guess maybe there's some legacy accounts and campaigns that had the 28-day still available and accessible. I'd have to dig into some of my client accounts to see if that's true. But what's interesting about it is this is the change that I think caused CPMs to spike. And I realize correlations and causation, so I could just be an idiot that doesn't know what he's talking about. But it makes sense to me that if you lose 75% of your data, and especially for the crack marketers, but really anybody out there, if you lose 75% of your data, you now have to quadruple your spend in order to get that data back. And y'all, we're data-driven marketers, all of us. We're optimizing off of data. So if you lose 75% of your data, you lose 75% of your capabilities to optimize, which is what Facebook did. They took a 28-day attribution window and narrowed it down to 7, which is nuts. And so if that has been accessible for some people, I thought it was gone, but if it is still accessible for some people, and those people are about to lose it too, I think we're about to see that impact amplified by whatever percentage of those people still had access to that data, which is going to be really interesting. So I think that could be that could be something to watch for Facebook, but then also for us that don't necessarily play as well or as deeply inside of the Facebook ecosystem. This is the type of thing that pushes advertisers into other channels, and they're going to hit some ancillary channels too. Content marketing, I think will end up being really big. I think influencers, but they're going to bleed into Google. They're going to bleed more into YouTube, and then maybe for the real savvy, real nimble ones, maybe display. I think search is safe for the most part. And it's because it's just an entirely different paradigm. So if you're in the YouTube or display ecosystem, I think that this is really worth you watching out. Gradual rollouts. So their aggregated event management is kind of interesting. Facebook allows you to have 8 total conversion actions. That's it. And then you have to prioritize them. And then the way I understand it is you're not going to receive all of them. You're going to receive some of the ones that Facebook deems necessary, and your prioritization is a kind request, but not guaranteed. I'm not a Facebook expert, y'all, so this is based off of casual reading. If somebody wants to correct me there, please do. Expect performance fluctuations. Yeah. I love that they have to say this. I don't even fault it for them because people are so stupid that, why is my Facebook not working? So here's them saying all advertisers are subject to the 8 event per domain limit. We already knew that. Modification for some web event configurations will automatically pause ad sets. Yeah, this is really interesting too. So Facebook doesn't know how to contend with any of this either, which is why they're like, look, if we're not sure, we're going to stop everything that you're doing. And then they provide you with a bunch of resources. Oh, this is the best one right here. Bam. This is what I want to get at. Audience sizes may decrease. As more people upgrade to iOS 14.5, opted-out users will automatically be excluded from certain targetable audiences, which may result in decrease of audience sizes. Now, the number of people opting out due to iOS 14 is going to be all of them, effectively, until they choose to opt back in. So if you're not sure what's going on, by the way, I'll zoom all the way out and rewind. Apple said people have to opt in to be tracked. And the vast majority of people that are visiting Facebook are visiting Facebook on their mobile device. I think it's safe to assume that they're visiting on their mobile device through a mobile app. And so you take whatever percentage of those consumers are iOS users, and I don't know that number, but even though it's less than the Android users, I think that they tend to be more affluent. They're God forgive me for saying, and I'm allowed to say this because I'm an Android user, so I'm not trying to bash anybody, but I think they're the more important demographic. They're the ones that people tend to watch. And those folks are automatically opted out from all tracking unless they choose, when a pop-up window shows up saying, hey, do you want to be tracked, unless they choose to opt in. I don't know many people that would choose to opt in. There's some folks that might actually actively want personalized ad delivery and those types of things, but I think most folks are going to choose to opt out. What do I know? We'll see. But really what just happened, if I'm right, is you took all of this data that advertisers had and you wiped it right off of the table, and they're not going to get it back. And I think that the scramble there, the mad dash there, is going to be, of course, bid into Facebook. So for advertisers that are effective and know that they can be profitable, they're just going to increase their bids, which is fine. That'll actually work, right? You've lost some data, so just make sure that you get in front of more people now that you can't necessarily canvas exactly who those people are, and your ads were already working prior to, so maybe decrease in efficiency, but you're still going to be able to work. Cool. But you're also going to see a bunch of people that need to go find out alternative options. And in my mind, the biggest, shiniest, prettiest, semi-similar alternative is YouTube. And I think we're going to see a mad rush of Facebook advertisers into YouTube. And then once they open up YouTube and you're in the Google ecosystem, you start to realize how interconnected all this junk is. And then they'll segue into display and who knows what else. And then maybe RLSA or things that are search relevant. I do think, maybe I'm being naive, I think search is safe because Facebook is so heavily outbound and interrupter-based marketing. I don't anticipate those folks going heavily into search. I don't know how they could. If you've been making all your bones on Facebook outbound, I don't think search is. It's a totally different funnel. So I could be wrong. Maybe just me being optimistic. No matter what, though, we're going to keep an eye on it and keep an eye on Facebook. So if you've got more deets, I've got some buddies. Jason Smith, actually, specifically, he owns Spotlight Social. They're one of the best Facebook agencies on the freaking planet. Let me actually just give these dudes a plug because they've been so helpful for me. They've ran ads for Microsoft. The dude's got 2 Facebook published case studies. And what I mean by that, y'all, is Facebook published the case studies. Like, Facebook wrote about these guys and said, hey, they're crushing life. They don't just have 1, they have 2. I've never met anybody that has 2. So really wicked sharp fellas. Amazing at what they do. I brought them in to help with a client who spends $500,000 a month sometimes on Facebook, and they've just absolutely freaking crushed it. And they're where I go when I don't know what the hell is going on in the realm of Facebook. So if you need Facebook help or Facebook ads, they're the guys to go to. They're not cheap, but they shouldn't be because they're great. They're good at what they do. And I've been relying on them pretty heavily for the information that we've been gathering. I also went off and I just hired John Loomer for an hour. If you don't know John, he's the world authority in Facebook ads. He does a lot of coaching and education. And I just wanted to talk to him about what was going on and his thoughts on things. It didn't change my mind as much as it just reinforced everything that I was thinking. But yeah, it's important for us to pay attention to, and it's going to be interesting to see how this impacts, other advertising elements. It's also, and this will be the last thing I say because I realize I'm just rambling now. It's a really good trial run because there's going to be more of this. Google has an ongoing obsession with privacy, so they say. I think it's just they're seizing the opportunity to further encapsulate what it is that they have and kind of entrench themselves, which is fine. Fine for them, not for us. But there's going to be, there's pushback to that. I saw an article that's saying that, WordPress might go to war with Google, which ended up not being true. It was like one WordPress contributor said something in a forum and people were, took it way out of context. All that said, we're going to have to learn how to contend with these changes. And it's really nice to be able to watch, from a safe seat. Because I think that these lessons, even though it might be different types of changes with different technological implications or implementations or whatever, I think some of the pivots are going to be the same. And so if we're watching now, we could be, those who remember the past are condemned not to repeat it. I think I just butchered that quote. But yeah, that's all I got. I hope this was helpful. I shoot a video every day. So if you want to watch them, subscribe. And if you don't, you shouldn't, because I don't want to bug you. Thanks. Love y'all. Bye.